Welcome to the Train Well podcast, guys, where we inspire you to move more, to get stronger, and to have fun. Today, Darian and I just sit down and we just have a great heart-to-heart about all things movement. We talk about strength training. We talk about resistance training. Hell, we even go on a few tangents about the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, we really went on a journey. I definitely had a few ranting moments, but it was so much fun. So sit down with us, let's chat, and let's talk about why we love to exercise.
Let's go. I want to start this off by asking you, what if someone were to come to you and be like, hey, what is this? What is strength training? What would you tell them?
In response to what is strength training?
What is strength training?
Well, who's coming to me and asking?
An alien from PT 1000X, the planet from another galaxy. What is strength training? They have no idea. Tell them, how would you define it?
Okay, so if it's an alien from another planet coming, they have no clue. I would keep it short and simple. I would say strength training is using resistance, using gravity to work your muscles. So I wouldn't get into any details. I'd just simply say, it could be body weight movements, doing squats, doing push-ups, which would be using the resistance of gravity to get stronger. But if it's like an alien who gets that pretty well, and he was like, break it down for me, or she, we don't know, was like, break it down for me. I personally would say that strength training is heavy weight, low reps.
And then the next follow-up would be like, how heavy? Like, what is...
Yeah, that depends.
What is your definition of heavy?
It depends on where you're starting from. I think we have to choose a weight that you can do. This is tricky because if someone's new, I don't want them only doing like 5 reps or less to start. But if they've been working out for a bit and they really want to start seeing progress and doing a strength program and say, I really want to get stronger, then I would say, okay, we need to choose weights that you really can't do more than 5 times really well. Like maybe you could do a couple more reps, but the form maybe starts to break down. So we're choosing weights that you can do 5 times with good form. And then we're resting for a long time. We don't want to feel like we're huffing and puffing.
I would say, we talked about this earlier, but would you say that strength training and resistance training are the same thing?
Well, again, if it's the alien, sure. Like the alien that knows nothing, I'm like, yeah, same thing. But if we're getting like technical, like a little bit more in the weeds about what you want to achieve, I do think they're a little different, because I think resistance training kind of just encompasses anything you do that is kind of with any amount of load or weight, versus strength training is more specific to actually increase the strength, like the actual amount of weight you can lift. What do you think?
I think strength training and resistance training are the same thing. I think when I talk to people about the difference, it's just splitting hairs, because like whether it's bands, whether it's body weight, whether it's dumbbells, barbells, kettlebells, I think that whole umbrella is resistance training. What I think you're referring to is the heavier lifting would be maximal strength training.
Okay.
And then after absolute training, so if we were to define it, right, if I were talking to this alien, I would say, hey, within resistance training, there's different goals and adaptations that you get from doing certain reps, from doing certain tempos, from doing certain rest periods. And I would simply say there's maximal strength training, then there's absolute strength, which is, anywhere from maximal is like 1 to 3, 5 reps, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. Then you have this kind of blend between like 6 and 8, 9, 10 reps. I would consider that more absolute strength. And then you get into hypertrophy, right? Like the 8 to 12, 15. And then of course the textbook says endurance 15 plus. So I would say that yes, resistance training is this all-encompassing thing. I would argue there isn't a difference between strength training and resistance training.
Yeah, that's interesting because I guess I'll agree. Okay, you
The
won me
first time
over.
we've agreed, folks. You've heard it here. The first time we agreed. Now, with that, let me ask you this: why has modern society, like in the old school fitness, like changed with like today's fitness? Like why is strength training, heavy strength training, maximal strength training, not as cool? Like why to some people, like it's those classes, you know what we're talking about?
Yeah, no, I think it I still think it's cool, and I think it people back in the day, there was a very small group of people that were like, this is so cool. Nobody, still to this day, I don't think it's like widely cool to like lift heavy, but I think it's becoming more and more cool actually. But I do want to ask you, if someone says like, "Oh, Joey, I started strength training." And you're like, "Wow, yeah, that's so cool. That's amazing. What are you doing?" And they were like, "I'm doing bar class." Is that strength training? That seems so different to me. And they're like, and you're like, oh, they're like, it's so hard. My muscles are burning. And you're like, "Ah, how much weights are you lifting?" They're like, "I grabbed the fives today, leveled up."
Technically, gosh, that's a good question. Technically, it could be argued that is resistance training for sure. I would say yes, because with that, I've never taken a bar class, but
Oof.
they technically are using their body weight, right? They're moving through space. They are using external loads. Yes, I would say that that's just a different tool. And I don't know, do you get stronger with bar classes? I mean, if you're a newbie, you're gonna get stronger at everything you do. I mean, if you can go get the mail from the mailbox, you technically get stronger, whatever your strength is. But yes, do you get stronger from a bar class?
Well, bar is not my forte. Forte. I don't know. It's not my thing. Because I don't like to do little tiny movements like that really isolate just like one muscle. And like my experience, I didn't really take a strict bar class. I've taken like these kind of like bar Pilates combo type classes. And the instructor says things like up an inch, down an inch, up an inch,
Oh.
down an inch. And then she's like, smaller, smaller. And I'm like, I'm just standing here. Like, I don't feel anything. Like, but I get it because once you've gone up an inch, down an inch for like 2 minutes straight, you're like, whoo, sheesh, I gotta put these weights down. But I cannot imagine. I think initially, if you do those classes, yeah, for sure, you do get stronger, but it does just become muscular endurance. I think you're just training your muscles to do a movement pattern for a very extended period of time. But then, if you were to go to the gym and try like just 5 bicep curls, I think you would find it really challenging to do those at a weight that's much heavier. I don't think you would have increased your strength.
Yeah, I think this is would you agree that like everyone needs to determine one what it's all goal centric, right? Like yes, like figure out a goal. Most people either want to lose weight or gain muscle, or do both at the same time, body recomp. But would you agree that everyone should define what their definition of strength is? For some people, that might be hitting a 15-minute 5K. Like that's technically strong, right? Strength with your aerobic system, or I want to deadlift 3 times my body weight, right?
Well, I guess to me that's more like what is their definition of fitness? Like what kind of fit do they want to be? Because like I this is an embarrassing moment for me. I still have a lot of embarrassing moments, but this is a particularly embarrassing moment from my 20s. Um I was living in California at the time and I still am, was scared of the ocean. But I was just really like, you know what? I'm going to get over my fear and I'm going to surf. I'm going to learn to surf and I'm going to get over my fear of the ocean. So I booked a lesson. Like I didn't want to just go out by myself. So I got a lesson for surfing. And I actually said to this surfing instructor, just so you know, this is so mortifying. Just so you know, I'm probably going to be pretty good at this because I do CrossFit. Like it's kind of like a burpee. He literally was like, okay. I was so incredibly bad. I couldn't even stand up. I couldn't catch a wave. I couldn't do anything. At one point, I tried to stand up, wiped out the strap, the whatever the string is that comes off the surfboard that attaches to your ankle, wrapped
Yeah.
around my neck. I'm getting pummeled by waves. I'm like drowning and choking at the same time, like getting strangled. It was so brutal. I say all that to say that just because I was doing strength training didn't mean I was then good at like surfing. So you have to decide like what does fitness mean to you? What kind of fit do you want to be? If you want to be really strong doesn't mean you're going to be able to ride 30 miles on a bike. You know, if you want to ride 30 plus miles on a bike doesn't mean you're going to be able to deadlift heavy weights. So you just kind of have to figure out what's fun and important to you.
Let's define fitness. Like fitness, if you look in the dictionary, it is literally the ability to do a task. Health is I'm just going to throw this in there. Health is the
Sure.
interplay of all the organs, right? What I would say to that, I would say, yes, you're right. Define your level of fitness, whatever you want it to be, comma, the only time health comes before fitness, or sorry, fitness comes before health is in the dictionary. Like make sure you're healthy. Like I get, Darian, we get the clients all the time who like come to you and they're like, I want to do 10 pull-ups, but they're like drinking a bottle of scotch in one hand and have a cigarette in the other. It's like we need some bigger things to work on here, bud, before we do your 10 pull-ups. And I swear it's the media, right? We can talk about the media, but the media does such this great job. It does a good job of convincing our client base that they need to be like super shredded or 20-year-old Instagram model with the booty shorts or super jacked magazine guy, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I agree. There's like a lot of I guess we could call it propaganda out there. I mean, we're constantly being fed these images and like diet culture is this like real thing which incorporates this, you know, idea of fitness as well. And now I have a whole other like personal agenda of like I don't want anyone to come to me, and people do. I want all the people to come to me, obviously, to train. But my ultimate goal is, my hope is that they're going to like ascend past, oh, I want to be thinner, I want to be ripped, I want to be shredded, I want to have abs, I want to have a big butt, whatever it is that they want, into, oh, I get it. I get that this is truly a lifelong endeavor. This is something I'm doing to improve the quality of my life, regardless of if my body ever changes the way it looks. Because the truth is, when you go to the gym, look around the gym, most everyone just looks like a normal person. They aren't looking like Arnold. They aren't looking like, you know, the women on the cover of the fitness magazines. They're just normal. And they've probably been training for years. A lot of these people, if they're, you know, doing barbell lifts and things like that, been training for years and years, possibly decades, and they just look normal. They look healthy and fit. Because just simply going to the gym day after day, year after year, isn't going to provide, to create this like chiseled body that everyone thinks they're going to get. What it does is it creates a resilient and strong, healthy body. And I do truly believe that at the end of the day, when you really get deep with someone that says, like, I want to be jacked, or I want to be ripped, I want to have abs. Why? All it comes down to is I want to feel more confident, more capable, and more comfortable in my body. At the end of the day, I think that is what we all want. And I'm like, cool, we can get you there right now without your body ever looking different. We can do it, and we do it through movement. I don't even know where we started that conversation. I went off.
That was solid. So let's talk about how can this tool of resistance training, how can that help someone engage confidence, change their physique, break down these barriers of what they have? And before I ask you that, I want to regress and say, hey, I would agree with you that most people are here for confidence, or feel better, move better, get out of pain, be more productive, whatever. But I think we got it wrong in the fitness industry. I think that training is not for the body. I think it's for the mind. I think nutrition is for the body, 100%.
But if I don't, I don't know about that. Because, like, if I'm just, like, eating a clean, quote unquote, diet, because I don't even like to use that phrasing. I mean, the training is what's going to make me stronger. Eating clean is not going to make me stronger. And if I want to be able to take the trash bins out and carry my groceries in when I'm 95, I do have to train. I can't just eat a healthy diet.
Here's why I say that. That came from Mark Bell. Mark Bell is an amazing powerlifter. He was a bodybuilder. Is because the strength, like if you've been doing this a long time, and Darren, you can attest to this, the strength, the hypertrophy, the grip strength, the capacities you get, like they're a byproduct of conditioning and callousing your mind after time and time again of going to the gym. If you want to change your body, change your looks, like if I take two Darians, clone Darian A and clone Darian B, and Darian A, she does her strength training, she kind of eats mediocre, fast food once in a while, that Darian is going to look very different from the other Darian who only hits a couple workouts a week but eats super, super clean. That clean eating Darian is going to be like super different body comp, like contestant ready Darian, so to speak. See what I'm saying?
I do, but that Darian would be sad. She would be sad. Well, and she'd probably be binging on the weekends secretly. She was that Darian at one point.
80%, here's what I tell people, and dear listener, 80% should be, mindful. 20% needs to be, as Stacey Sims put it, Darian, 20% needs to be fun. Otherwise, we wouldn't have our sugar and whiskey, I believe was her exact phrase. So yes, but I'm not saying she's, measuring everything or blah, 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 but she's just mindful 80% of the time, because and we could talk about this in another podcast, but in my my pie chart of dictating someone's success, especially with body composition or even success in any really fitness endeavor, it's not movement. Movement is not the number one.
Yeah, it's not movement.
I would say it's sleep, then nutrition, maybe I can't give you percentages, like 40% sleep, because if you train hard and you don't recover, you ain't gonna change anything. If you train super hard and eat like crap, you're not gonna change that much. Yeah, you might get stronger, but your joints are gonna have more inflammation, you're gonna have brain fog, you're not gonna be able to focus on the mind-muscle connection. Then I would add, so nutrition, sleep, and then movement as my third. But then you got stress management. Then you got...
Yeah, nutrition gets bumped way down the list.
Yeah.
It really does. I truly do think, this is to counter what you're saying, but maybe you're going to join me over here, is that we've been made to think, because of how many diets there are and how many diet books and how many diet protocols and all this kind of stuff, that diet, and everyone says abs are made in the kitchen, abs are made in the kitchen. But the thing is nutrition is really low on the list when we're talking about sleep, stress management, hormones, and exercising regularly in terms of health. Nutrition is low on the list because it doesn't make that big of a difference.
Wait, really you're saying nutrition is low on your list?
I think it's low on the list of if we're just trying to get all around healthier.
Oh, I totally disagree.
I am putting other stuff up there. I think the reason people put nutrition up higher on the list is because it's a quote unquote easy needle to move. You can make the change instantaneously. Versus sleep, it's a little harder to figure out the sleep situation if somebody is having really bad sleep. Versus stress, that's a little bit more challenging because that involves multiple life factors. Hormones, I mean, that's going to involve a doctor potentially to help you figure out like a hormone thing. Those are harder needles to move, but so incredibly vitally important. And in terms of exercise, exercise really is not an effective weight loss strategy. It most certainly is not. It is an effective way to have a stronger body and improve health markers, like extremely effective way to improve health markers. But it as a weight loss strategy, lowest on the list. Now, nutrition as a weight loss strategy, I think, is much higher on the list for sure, because this is, I mean, people see all the time when you reduce the amount of food you eat, you lose weight. But 95% of people after losing weight gain it back, if not more. 95%. If you were to buy anything, whatever it is, a computer, and someone said, this is an amazing computer, this is totally going to work for you. The thing is, it doesn't work 95% of the time. But that 5%, it's amazing. Are you going to buy that computer? No. So like everyone's like, I want to lose weight, I want to lose weight. I'm like, it's just not gonna work. So let's focus on all the other things that are gonna work and that are ultimately gonna get you to more confident, more capable, more comfortable. And like, we'll just see how the weight loss goes. Because honestly, any body image issues you have, that's a mental game. That has nothing, very little to do with what your body actually looks like. Right? I can say that pretty surely, because my body's basically always looked the same, and there were times when I had a deep hatred for my body. It doesn't look really that much different now, and yet I'm like, yeah, this is great, this is awesome, because my mental state has changed.
Good talk.
Sorry, I went off again. Oh God, sorry. Just
I'd say,
put me on a soapbox.
Getting back to like the strength training piece, like
reel me in.
I should take that back, because here's why. Powerlifters, like some of them I know, like I have two good buddies that are powerlifters. They eat like crap, but hey, they sure get stronger. Holy cow. They're nearing 2,000 in their totals.
They're eating Pop-Tarts.
But is that healthy?
We'd have to check the blood markers. We'd have to check their blood markers.
Yeah, exactly. And so I would say, like, if we're talking, again, it goes all back to what your goal is, what your level of fitness wants to be. But if you're looking for optimal health, okay, this is where I would say, let's start with sleep, then nutrition, then training. 100%. Because I know that if you're looking to improve all those markers, I think sleep and nutrition will raise all the ships. 100%.
Before movement, I'm going to put movement first, because I do think exercise is the biggest, is the best way to improve health markers. Think about all the health markers you can improve by exercising, by doing resistance training. Can you say the same for nutrition? Like, what is even, no, but think about this. People love to hate on carbohydrates, right? Okay. People love to hate on carbohydrates. People will promise you up and down that sugar's bad. Well, if you're type 1 diabetic and your blood sugar drops, guess what? You're pumping yourself full of sugar. Is that unhealthy in that situation? I personally think dairy is very healthy. It offers fats and proteins. And yet, if I'm lactose intolerant, is that healthy for me? No, probably not. It messes me up. It's just so different and individualized across the board. I just don't think we can improve as many health markers with nutrition as we can with exercise.
So it depends on the individual, and we should say that. Like, we shouldn't speak in absolutes, because everyone's different. But let me ask you this question. If you have a person who's severely high stress, doesn't sleep, like sleeps, maybe 2-3 hours a night, joints are acting like crazy, he can't even bend his elbows to eat his cereal, he can't even walk upstairs. Are you telling me you're going to take that individual and you're going to say we should start with movement? That's going to be our number one remedy to start with?
Well, if they're not sleeping and they're high stress, then no, I don't want to start with movement. I guess we
What
could,
would you start with?
I mean, I guess I would send them first to a doctor and like, let's get blood levels looked at. That's what I would start with. And I guess I would start with like, let's just look at diet and see where we can go with it. But I don't think I have any like illusions that like they're gonna, start eating a little healthier and they're gonna make these huge sweeping changes. I think like as soon as we can get the sleep and the stress managed, then we start movement. And that
No,
can just be walking.
I'm with you.
Oh, just a walk.
Do you know walking is the only exercise that decreases cortisol? Unless, and people look it up, unless you count breathing as a cortisol reducer. And cortisol, if you're listening to this, cortisol is a stress hormone. Basically, it makes you catabolic, so to speak. You start eating yourself. But yeah, walking is medicine. Movement is technically medicine. But I would say with a lot of my clients, Darian, come to me and they're like, I want a bigger bench. I want to lose weight, blah, blah, blah. And that's where I say, hey, I want to back up a little bit. I know you want to bench press 200 pounds. I know you want to start doing these classes. I know you want to start doing CrossFit, whatever. But I say, let's look at the overall health picture. And I think that's where our community is going. Like, just like when you go to an MD, it's like typical run of the mill. Do you have this? No. Do you have pain here? Yes. Okay, here's your drug. See you later. Next guy. Do you have this? Here's your drug. See you later. My wife's a pharmacist. She'll attest to that. I think we need to take a much holistic approach and look at sleep, look at nutrition, look at stress management, look at movement quality, and then factor that in. But to kind of get back to this, I'd say movement is lower on my list. And I changed my opinions over the years because of what I've had success with people with, changing their lives through sleep, through nutrition, before we talk brass tacks about deadlifts and reps and sets and whatnot.
Yeah, I will say just quickly to wrap up this little nutrition debate we're having, it's not as if I think nutrition doesn't matter. But if I were going to start with nutrition, like someone like you described, high stress, low sleep, pain, and I were going to start with nutrition, I wouldn't be starting with, all right, let's log that food, let's take out everything that's bad, quote unquote. I would say, let's focus on balance. Let's get a carb, a protein, and a fat in each meal if we can. Let's add more fiber. Let's up the protein. I'm not like trying to take out treats, especially I'm assuming their nutrition is poor because they're like running around like a chicken with their head cut off because they're so stressed and busy. So it's more trying to figure out how can we get you balanced meals on the go. It's not like I'm trying to like wipe them of all their joy in this world, the one stress reliever they have, which is cookies, It's fine. Eat those. And let's eat some veggies too and some protein.
Okay, let's reel us in.
So let's say somebody comes to you. They're getting decent sleep, moderate stress, nothing crazy, life stuff. So we're starting with movement. So how do they start? They've exercised a bit in the past. Maybe they were, an athlete in high school, just fun sports. They haven't really worked out since. Where did they start?
That's a great question. I love having people start with mobility. And what I mean by mobility is simply, to use Charlie Weingoff's the definition here is, can the joints get into the right positions to absorb and adapt to stress? Say that again. Can joints get in the right positions to absorb and adapt to stress? I start with mobility because when I use mobility as my framework, I can teach movement. I can teach a squat. I can teach a push. I can teach a hinge. And so that may be very basic for some people. It may just say, hey, can you squat in this chair? Can you put your arms overhead? Can you breathe correctly? I should have said breath too, because that's going to give me a great gauge of how their movement quality is before I add load and resistance. So for that person, their resistance training, quote unquote, is simply going to be to improve their mobility. From there, I graduate into load, then maybe add speed, et cetera, et cetera. Where would you start them?
I like starting with mobility. I think that seems great. I think you do have to definitely with a client that's coming to us where they really haven't been doing a lot of movement for a long time, and it hasn't been consistent. Definitely seeing how they move before adding load, like just checking that. So to me, that like, kind of like what you said, I'm starting people with body weight squats, maybe a wall push up or an incline push up, maybe Superman's to see, get a feel for their shoulder mobility, lower back strength. We're going to see if they can hinge. So some sort of like body weight good morning, or a dumbbell or kettlebell deadlift, just the basic movement patterns without a lot of load. So, basic movement patterns would be, a knee dominant movement like a squat, a hinge, so, extension and flexion at the hip, something overhead, so I can check shoulder mobility, like even if it's like an overhead reach, something like that, or that push up, that inclined push up type movement, just to see how the body is moving with basic stuff.
That's why the functional movement screen, FMS, have you heard of functional movement screen, Darian?
Yeah.
That's why it's so powerful. Like now that we're remote, I have people just do simple tests. And there's 7 tests in the FMS: deep squat, hurdle step, inline lunge, rotary stability, shoulder mobility, hip mobility, trunk stability, push up. And it's like when you get a fever, okay, you get a fever, you take a thermometer, and that thermometer is, okay, do we need to go to the ER right now, or am I going to Walgreens and getting some Pedialyte? That thermometer is the FMS. That is the mobility screen. So getting back to your original question, where do you start? I'm a firm believer, like start with mobility, then graduate to advanced movements.
Yeah, and I do think that doesn't really take long. You can get someone doing like these basic movements for just 2 weeks, and then start loading. I mean, even I think right off the bat, you can do a farmer carry without having to, be moving really, really well with a ton of mobility, because farmer carry is a walk with weights on either side. And I think right away you can get people loading without, having to do any sort of compound movements.
My top 5 teaching tools for each pattern is the squat. Okay. Can they get on all fours and rock back and forth? It's like a rocking stretch. That's the very baseline of squat. A hinge, can they do a hip bridge on their back, bent legs, lift their hips up without squeezing or having their quads take over their glutes? That's my baseline hinge pattern.
Oh, can I pause you there?
Yeah.
My quads always take over in a hip thrust on the bench. When I'm back elevated, I cannot figure it out to this day. And I'm even a trainer, and I know all the tips and tricks, and my quads still take over. I got a tip and trick
for you. Here's what you do. You foam roll each quad, find one tender spot for 30 seconds. So do a set of hip thrusts, then do just lightweight, then foam roll each quad 30 seconds, and then do a couch stretch or something to open up your quads for a minute or so with contract, relax. So you want to squeeze your butt, tuck your tailbone, relax, squeeze your butt, do that for 30 seconds each quad, and then go into an isometric. Do the hip thrust at the top. I guarantee your body's going to have a much better response, unless you have some sort of like neurologic condition. I have worked with individuals who they just cannot fire their quads. Like this one guy I trained, Steve.
You mean their glutes?
Their glutes. Their quads are just like this e-brake on, and they can't. They're inhibiting their glutes so bad. This guy I had, Steve, he had a semi-paralysis spinal cord injury, and his strength, back to his strength, and we got him there, wasn't to lift whatever. It was simply to walk down the aisle with his daughters when they got married. That was his strength, and we got him there. But the way we did that is very basic moves because of the spinal cord injury, because he literally could not fire his glutes anymore. And so back to my baseline screening, I'm getting out of whack here. Hinge, my push assessment is can you simply hold a good push-up plank position? Can you squeeze your glutes? Can you draw your belly button into your spine, tight pair of jeans? My pull is an inverted row hold. Like, can they Can they grab a pair of rings, TRX, pull themselves up and maintain that body position without arching, without shrugging? And then my carry is just what you said, either a Turkish get-up assessment or a farmer carry. So yes, start with mobility, but don't be as shy to add load. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, because I don't think you have to move perfectly to be able to have add load safely. Like I still have clients who I've worked with for years who have, you know, shoulder mobility issues. We're still doing overhead presses. We're just doing it more gradually. We're paying more attention. We're making sure we're continuing to do the mobility over time. And for me, when it comes to form, I'm just looking at like, I don't care if the form is perfect, it just has to be safe. Like, it just has to look like this person has good core engagement, that they understand a movement pattern and I see the effort they're putting into it, even if their mobility doesn't allow them to get there. Like you see people with like that hunched upper back doing a deadlift and you're like, oh my gosh, their back is rounding. It's like, well, it's because they have like zero shoulder mobility, like upper back mobility. They should still be doing deadlifts. But if you can get them to engage in that and put effort there and they're bracing through the core, I don't see that as being unsafe necessarily. It's just doesn't look pretty.
Totally, I agree. Like even strongman competitions, when they go to round over a ball and pick up that stone, the Atlas stone, they have to round their back.
Mm-hmm.
But they're so locked in, they're still moving about the hip with that bad posture, And posture is a whole different thing we could talk about because I think posture's fluid. It's never the same. It adapts to what you put in the most. But over that deadlift, yeah, that like I agree. I think it's okay to be appropriate and don't be a technique Timmy. We were talking before with your friend. Like,
Yeah.
don't be like, yes, be worried about your form, but also push the envelope a little bit. Otherwise, we're never going to see any adaptation. Don't be scared as you're nearing your failure on some sets to cheat a little bit. That's totally fine. I tell clients, hey, if you give me 10 reps and 6 to 7 of those, even 8 of those better are solid and the last couple are a little shaky, that's totally fine. You're still going to buffer the majority of that lift. You're still going to have good core stability, etc.
Yeah, I think effort counts. Like I used to be such a hard ass about form and range of motion, like not form as much, but range of motion for sure. And it's like, oh, your chin didn't go over the bar in that pull up. No, that's not a pull up. But actually, effort counts. If you're really struggling trying to get your chin over that bar and it's just not happening, but you're putting all that effort in, man, oh man, are you working your muscles really freaking hard?
And you will get some good physiologic
Yeah,
change.
you will. I do think it's so important to also know that the body has to adapt to the load. So there may be a weird, and the body will adapt. Your bones will get stronger, your connective tissues will get stronger, your muscles will get stronger. Your body will adapt to a load. But there are times when the muscles are adapting faster, maybe than like the joint. And you start to notice some like aches, some pain, some soreness. Maybe this is controversial, I don't know, but I'm like, it's okay. It's not bad to feel uncomfortable and achy. When I was like really leveling up with my pull ups, my elbows hurt all the time. Like I needed to be massaging them constantly. I needed to have ice packs on them, heat on. I mean, they hurt all the time. Was I injured? No. My body was adapting to a new load that I was placing upon it. My elbow joint was trying to catch up to my ability to do more and more pull-ups. So, did I stop doing pull-ups? No, no, no. And I'm not saying people should not listen to their bodies, but there is a difference between like pain, I'm injured, and pain, my body is figuring out something new. I kept going, kept working through it. And now guess what? My elbows never, ever, ever hurt. Ever. Ever.
Yeah, I love it. There's a difference between injury and hurt, right?
How do people know the difference? Can we break it down?
Well, if you're an athlete, you had a coach somewhere along the line that said vitamin I. You know what vitamin I is?
No.
Ibuprofen.
Oh.
Take some vitamin I, get back on the field, Timmy. Hate to say any Timmys out there, but the difference is like you said load earlier, like your body's adapting to load. I would say it's adapting to a new stress.
Yeah. Okay.
And of course, you're going to have repercussions from that, right? I always ask people in terms of pain, is it tight? Is it a pinch, or is it pain? If it's tight, you'll be okay. You'll live another day. If it's a pinch, that's like a yellow light. Okay, let's be cautious with this and that low back on the next deadlift. If there's pain, you know the difference. Like you're like shooting. Like when you hit your tailbone on something, you're like that is pain. That is red mark. And the number one rule of training is to do no harm. Again, here's my comma, but don't be afraid if you are adapting a different way and it's a little uncomfortable, just like you said, Darian. Be comfortable being uncomfortable. Again, it's all about the callus that we form with that. So know the difference between tight, pinch, and pain.
Yeah, and I like to say too, especially with something like a deadlift, my clients will say, "Oh, my back hurts. I'm nervous. Mom, my back hurts." Well, some of the questions I like to ask, okay, is it hurting on both sides equally? We're probably good. That's probably normal muscle soreness. Is it just on one side? Okay, if it's just on one side, now what does that pain feel like? Is it tightness? Is it shooting? Is it stabbing? Is it burning? Did you hear a sound when you felt the pain? Can you even pinpoint when you felt the pain during the movement? Because all of that is getting to, did something go wrong in the movement? Or is this that the body is responding to a stress that I put on it? Because it's okay sometimes if it's just on one side. It's a little more like, okay, let's ask further questions. If it's just on one side, that's a little less common. But even that can be okay. And I think we shouldn't be scared to continue to move and test things. And I think body trust is huge. Like, bodies are meant to adapt and heal and recover and repair. And the more you work out, the better your body gets at repairing itself. You're actually training to heal. So to just have a mindset of curiosity when it comes to like pain. Okay, I feel a thing. Let me test this a little without load. Let me like move my leg in this way, see if that triggers it. Move my leg in this way. Try this move. Let me add a little load. Does that hurt? Okay, now we're getting more information. This is something any person can use themselves. And then it creates a situation in which they have more autonomy and they are active in their recovery and their training, an active participant.
The human body will adapt to anything. Like, I'll take one extreme example, the Iron Cowboy. He did 100 Ironmans in 100 consecutive days. An Ironman triathlon is a 2.4 mile swim, a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, and a 26.2 marathon. He did that consecutively for 100 days. Actually, he did 101. But just to take that example, like, your body will adapt to absolutely anything and everything you allow it to. So let the adjustments take place. Don't be afraid to push the boundaries. Don't be afraid to tax, especially if you're trying to change your physique. Don't be afraid. And of course, seek professional help when you need it, when you do have those big time injuries like a herniated disc, to seek out medical treatment. But I think we should get away from having people being too scared to lift, because that's when people are new to strength training or new to going to the gym. That's one of the first things they'll tell you is I'm scared to lift. Like, I know there's a high, they'll say there's a high chance of injury. I can get hurt. What do you tell those people, Darian, when they're just a little bit timid?
Yeah, it's very understandable, because I think a lot of people who want to start working out, they want to start working out so they can move better and feel better, and they don't want to get injured. That would literally be the opposite of what they are hoping to achieve. But the truth is that movement is injury prevention. So especially like in the weight room, lifting weights is like really one of the safest ways you can move your body. You do have to start slow, start light, make sure you're learning the movement patterns well, test your mobility like we said. But if you do all those things, you're in a controlled environment when you're lifting weights. You're not like moving all that quickly most of the time. I mean, there are moves you do that are more quick type movements, but it's really actually quite rare. It's way less common for someone to get injured lifting weights than it is for someone to get injured like running or doing a sport. Those things will cause way more injuries than lifting weights in the weight room.
Explain to us why strength training is a quote unquote all-in-one package where we can increase our resiliency. It's core work, it's stability work, it's mobility work. Can you take us through that?
Oh, yeah. So, okay, this is actually one of my favorite things about lifting weights is you can be very, very efficient because if you're doing like your standard basic lifts, like deadlift, squat, bench press, or overhead press, personally is my favorite pushing movement, bent over row, you're moving multiple muscle groups, multiple joints at a time. So to be able to move that load, to be able to move any given load, you have to be able to engage your core. Let's say we're doing a squat. We're bending at the knee, we're bending at the hip, we're holding the load on our torso, so we're engaging through the core. We're working our calves, quads, hamstrings, glutes. It really is a very efficient way to move your body. And especially if you're lifting heavy, you're getting this like sprint basically where you're working your fast twitch muscle fibers. And as people age, typically the reason there is a loss of muscle fiber is because people stop doing these quick, heavy, sprint type movements and they're losing their fast twitch muscle fibers. That's like where that loss comes from. So if you're wanting to maintain your strength throughout your life, you really do have to be training both of these muscle groups. And weightlifting is a great way to do it.
You'll take yogis, who like they're super flexible and mobile, but you put them in the bottom of a squat and they'll cave like a baby giraffe. Like when you properly load really, really well, you will get super strong in all ranges of motion. Mm-hmm. I'm just thinking of a goblet squat off the top of my head, right? Or maybe I should use a Turkish get-up better, but you're at each range of motion, right? Each in that roll, the tall sit, the bridge, the hinge, you're going to get all those boxes checked of each joint is now expressing full range of motion and strength at in range of motion, which is going to keep me more resilient. I don't think there's another tool out there other than strength training or resistance training that'll encompass that. There might be maybe one of these days, but to this day, I don't know that there's no bigger bang for your buck exercise, quote unquote, exercise tool than there is lifting weights.
Yeah. Well, I'll just tell our listener a little story that when we were taking some notes down for why we love strength training so much, why it's so amazing that everyone should do it, and I wrote cardio. I wrote, because when I do heavy deadlifts, I am like breathing heavy, and I was like, we get our cardio too. If your heart's elevated, you're getting cardio. And Joey, you roasted me for that. You really gave it to me in terms of like, no, it's not cardio. So break that down, because I was really thinking that it was. But I really am more of a fan of like lifting weights than I am of doing cardio. So tell us how we can still incorporate even training cardio with weights.
With strength training tools. Mm-hmm. So the reason why it's not cardio is very simply, just because your heart rate is high does not mean you're getting more cardiovascularly fit. I used to joke all the time that if I just scared you, you would be in better shape. Not the case. When you lift, very simply, the reason why your heart rate's high, like let's say you're doing a deadlift set of 5. And Darren, you could probably do like what, 405, 420?
When you're 600, it's 600 actually.
When you're deadlifting and then you get done with your set, what's going on with that deadlift is you're getting this massive constriction and an increase in blood flow, massive constriction of the blood vessel. And so to match that, your heart kind of panics, so to speak. You get this huge release of adrenaline, norepinephrine, epinephrine, and that's what causes your heart rate to spike. Matter of fact, there's zero oxygen involved in that. It's very anaerobic. And so you get aerobically fit with cardio because there's a ton of tissue of oxygen demand to those tissues, usually something over 20, 30 minutes. So that's kind of the long and short of it. You're getting your heart rate spike because of this adrenaline rush, not necessarily because you're improving your oxygen efficiency, your cardiac output, et cetera. And that's why the top endurance athletes with the highest VO2 scores are they're lifting maybe once, twice a week, sometimes up to three, but they're not in the gym lifting weights like 6 days a week like a powerlifter. That's why a powerlifter can't really walk across the street, let alone run a mile, right?
Hey. Some
So
of us can.
now, comma, there's my comma again. You can use tools like resistance training to get a similar effect. For instance, like a high intensity interval training. First of all, we got to fit, what kind of cardio we're trying to achieve. Like in my opinion, cardio is anything to improve your cardiovascular system, and a marker to look at is your VO2 max, right? Are we really increasing VO2 max? Is that a measure of our cardio? If you're a complete beginner and you go to the gym, yes, you're going to have some sort of aerobic benefit just from being in the gym for 60 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever. Even if you're just lifting weights, I think you're going to get a higher cardiac output. However, at some point, very quickly, your body's going to see, okay, we need some other stimulus to get this going. So here's a cool way you can incorporate it using, and Darian, you can use this if you want to, but pick 4 exercises. This is the 4x30 method. I can't remember who came up with this, but pick 4 exercises, 4 strength, quote unquote, strength exercises, like kettlebell swings. Let's pick battle ropes. Let's pick push-ups, and let's pick farmer carries. Okay. Now the load has to be low enough that you can do it for 30 seconds, okay, continuously. But then you would do each exercise for 30 seconds, you rest for 30 seconds, and then you go through again. So, and you do it for like, let's just say 3 rounds to be simple. So you will get some cardiovascular benefit from that because A, the duration is at least, and the research goes against this, but, and can sometimes support it, but 5 minutes like minimum, okay, minimum. But the key is that you're making those efforts high intensity. That's why Tabata got a really good rap, because it was only 4 minutes and they saw increased VO2 markers. However, those people in the study, they were doing a ton of zone 2 and other cardio training during that trial, by the way. So you can see, I would argue 5 minutes max of doing that little circuit, you would get some sort of cardiovascular benefit from that. As long as your intent is there, you're not just doing like farmer carries with 5 pounds, you're doing with aiming up to heavier, like maybe half your body weight in each hand if you're really fit. You're doing kettlebell swings, very good. You're not doing it with like 10 pounds, you're doing it with a heavy enough load where you have to hinge and snap and hinge and snap. You're doing your battle ropes at an appropriate intensity, and you're doing your push-ups constantly. You're not breaking every 5 seconds. So doing a simple tool like that will definitely help. A Litanov is another great way to do it, is do some sort of ballistic, like a box jump, even fast feet. Like if you're banged up, you can't jump, is do foot quicks or feet on fire where you're like, and for like 30 seconds up to a minute. And then you go and jog or run or row for another minute. And do that on repeat for at least 5 minutes up to 30 minutes. If you do 30 minutes, you're pretty fit to get some cardiovascular benefit. But deadlifting your way to being more cardiovascular fit,
don't say it.
I don't think you can do it.
Okay, well, how about if I do a light enough load that I could do it for 30 seconds?
Well, and they do that in CrossFit, right? Like there's workouts where it's like tap and go deadlifts, and these CrossFitters do increase their VO2 max. For the average person though, like doing a deadlift for 30 seconds, very rarely do I program deadlifts for over 8 reps. Very rarely, just because it's such an intricate movement. But yes, but you technically could do it for 30 seconds. Let's say you did touch and go deadlifts every minute on the minute for 5 minutes. Like there's potential hazards there with, even if the load is light enough, like hinging over, tapping going, hinging over. Like I would say there's other tools we can do: an assault bike, a ski erg, swings, as I mentioned, even mountain climbers. There's less harmful moves we can choose to pick to increase our VO2 max.
So how often would I have to do something like that? If I wanted to, just let's say it's me. Okay, it's me. I have zero desire whatsoever to like run a race, like even like a fun 5K. I mean, I would walk it. If I were going to do that, my friends were like, let's do a 5K. I was like, cool, I'll walk. I just want to be normal, fit, healthy, like baseline. Like, okay, good. I get a check mark. You did it. Can I get away with twice a week, once a week?
Totally. I would
Okay.
start with once a week, because what our listeners are going to say, once a week up to 2 times. I'm really stinging on having people do high intensity stuff over 3 times a week, because it is very taxing on your system. And if you got a high stress job, you got kids, like you got to do it all encompassing, kind of like we were talking about earlier, a whole encompassing approach. But yeah, once, twice a week. I generally think for the most part, like if you do, like ACSM always says you need 75 minutes of high intensity or 150 minutes a week of low intensity, somewhere in that range of 75 or 60 minutes to 90 minutes. And I would say like 30-40% of that is high intensity, whether it's 2 20-minute sessions, 3 10-minute sessions. It's super easy to sprinkle it in, but do not neglect your low intensity cardio, especially as you age and we talk longevity, because it does wonders for your mental strength or your mental acuity, your mental illness. It does wonders for your recovery and your heart. Let's not forget that when you strength train, your left ventricle, okay, the walls of the left ventricle get thicker. And so your blood volume in that left ventricle actually gets smaller if you were to only lift. That's why it's so important to do both. So we talk about strongmen and Olympic weightlifters. They have a thick left ventricle, like boom, that thing can just pump. However, their blood volume is smaller. So don't neglect that cardiorespiratory work where you increase the left ventricular thickness, the volume, the chamber. You get more blood flow that way. You need both. You need strength and you need your cardio work. So don't neglect it. 60 to 90 minutes, sprinkle some high intensity stuff. Don't do it more than 3 times a week.
Yeah, I am all for high intensity being one, maybe 2 times a week because it is quite stressful on the body. Doing it more than that, it's going to be much harder to recover from. It's going to spike the cortisol levels. But so it sounds like what we are saying is we do have to do cardio. Okay, so we want to we want to increase our overall wellness. We should do some cardio. And I do actually think like a varied approach, like for overall well being, like we're not talking about people who are training for something specific or have a very, very specific goal. If you have a very specific goal, you want to, hike the whole Grand Canyon in a day, which I did. It was rough.
I did that.
You did?
I ran rim to rim to rim.
No way. I did rim to rim in a day. I didn't run, of course not. But I did meet a guy on the trail who was doing rim to rim to rim for his 60th birthday running. Oh my God. I was like, what in the world? My hips, I lost a toenail, by the way, because that hike was just, it's so long. And
did you go down Kai Bob or Bright Angel?
Kai Bob. And we started on the side that I think most people don't start on. We started on the I can't remember now.
Most people do Kai Bob down.
Yeah.
You might have done Bright Angel down.
No, I think we did. Kai Bob. Yeah, and it was like 9 miles down. It's 9 miles downhill. Yeah. This is the thing that makes the Grand Canyon hard. We're gonna take a detour for a second. The thing that makes Grand Canyon so hard, it's not the terrain. The terrain is flat. Like the actual path is flat. You're not going over rocks and roots like I am all the time in Pennsylvania when I'm going out for hikes. Like rocks and roots are pretty brutal. But it is downhill for 9 miles, unrelenting downhill. My knees were aching. My toes just kept hitting the front of my boot. And I love my hiking boots. Okay, so then you get down there. And we did this in June, okay? This is like the heat of the summer. We happened to get really lucky with the week. With the day that we were there, was the heat wave had just lifted, so it was okay. You get down there. We actually started at like noon, so we did more than half the hike in the dark. So we walk across to the other side, and you're like, oh, this is great. I mean, your body's a disaster at that point because of all the downhill, but you're finally just on the flat terrain. And then you have to walk up 9 miles, unrelenting 9 miles up the other side. Oh my God. And hiking at night, there were scorpions, lots of elk were out. It was a full moon that night that we did it. Couldn't really see the path clearly. I did have a headlamp, but it wasn't great. But we did it in 12 hours. Took 12 hours of just straight. We only took one real break for 1 hour and just some really small breaks in between. I would do it again though.
That's awesome. That's freaking awesome, Darian. When we did it, we started at 3:30 in the morning, and we did our run in about just shy of 14 hours. But we went down Kai Bob into Phantom Ranch, and then up North Rim. I remember at North Rim, I couldn't really. My gut was kind of going south on me. And then when we turned around, that's when I really, if you've done an ultra, like you realize, like, you know, like for me, whatever, it's like around the 8-9 hour mark, like my gut just does not like stuff. And so I remember they call that section Darian's talking about, the box between Cottonwood Campground, I believe it is, and the base where that bridge is, like the Colorado Trail or the Colorado River.
Mm-hmm.
The Colorado River is the Green River.
It's yes, Colorado. It's really beautiful.
Well, that thing gets freaking hot. Like we did it in April, and so I can't believe you did it in June, but I just remember coming out and to really appreciate what 5,000 feet of climbing looks like. Because like when you're climbing out of that canyon, like you can see little ants. Like you're thinking, oh, I'm going to be there one day. I'm going to be there, because it's 5,000 feet of climbing. 5,000 down, 5,000 up, 5,000 down, 5,000 up. That was a route to get to. But let's talk about this real quick. Like that's would you argue that is strength, hiking the Grand Canyon?
Yeah, I would, because I mean, I did it as a hike. I didn't run, obviously. I didn't train at all. I mean, I didn't train at all. I did 1 6-mile hike before I did that.
1 6-mile hike.
Yeah, and I did like a few little, like maybe 2-3 miles here and there. I did not train for that. And the thing that I thought was, it was not the cardio aspect of it. Obviously, for me, I'm like walking, but just the muscular endurance, like the quads, the joints, like it was really quite challenging. The core strength.
So you would argue that it is a strength, right? Like when you do those long endurance.
I don't think I would have been able to do that if I weren't strength training that whole time.
Yeah, totally. But there's and this is where we can talk about endurance too. There's some endurance athletes out there that they don't pick a weight whatsoever. My good buddy of mine, Craig Depperschmidt, he's a pro triathlete. When I go cycle with him, like, and he climbs hills, Darian, and we're in Colorado, we're climbing the Rocky Mountains, like up Vail Pass. He is climbing them freaking hard, like bleed out your eyes hard. And he does not strength train. But I would argue that is a certain strength. There's obviously his type 1 fibers are extremely durable, and they can seriously throw out some force, especially on the bike. But if you put him under a bar, I guarantee you he'll crumble, right?
Yeah, that's kind of like the point I'm trying to get to, is like, if you have something very specific you're training for, you got to just train that thing. Like if I were going to say, you know, I just want to do the Grand Canyon rim to rim in a day, and that was my only goal, and I needed to train, I would just train hiking pretty much. Maybe stair climber. Maybe if I would do some like lunges with weights, but I would be very focused on that. And I wouldn't expect that is going to really translate to anything else. So if you want to do something very specific, 100% focus on that. But if you are looking for general health and well-being and general fitness, a varied approach is really the best. Like lifting heavy, you know, where you're under 5 reps, heavy weight, but then also doing accessories where you're more in that hypertrophy zone, that moderate weight, moderate reps, and then getting the cardio in as well. And it's also important to find things you enjoy so you can actually continue to want to keep going back to do it. I mean, it does have to be somewhat fun. If you dread it, you're just not going to do it.
Yeah, you mentioned like the specificity, the SAID principle. Like that's so true. It's not gonna. It definitely is so specific to what you're training for. And I agree, Darian. Once again, we agree. In the template, like if you're my client, I want you to walk in the gym and I want you to check multiple boxes. I want you to check your cardio. I want you to check your mobility. I want you to check your strength. I want you to check your accessory and hypertrophy work, your core work, and then a little bit of extra conditioning to polish it off. And make sure if you're tight on time, and you can disagree with me on Darian, I would say if you're really short on time, get to the gym, do a quick cardio warm-up, do some mobility, pick 1 or 2 main compounds, 2 sets, take within 2 reps shy of failure, anywhere between the 4 reps to 8 reps, depending on if you're a beginner, I would say caution more to the 8 reps. Pick 1 accessory, do a quick conditioning 5 minutes, get out the gym. I would even argue you may not even need that accessory. If you're super tight on time, go in, do your cardio, do your mobility, do your movement prep, do 2 prime lifts, 2 core lifts, 2 compounds, do your conditioning, leave.
Yeah, I don't usually spend more than 35 minutes ever in a workout. Ever. I do 2 upper body days, 2 lower body days. Those workouts pretty much consist of I walk to the gym. That's my cardio.
Oh, nice.
It's a 5 to 8 minute walk, depending on how fast I'm moving. So that's my little warm up. I do my main lift. And then I will usually do 2 to 4 accessories supersetted, just based on how much time I have, but 35 minutes tops.
What's the superset?
So it could be, let's see, what did I do today? So today I did heavy deadlifts because I've been doing my Wendler program, and I was on my 5-3-1 week. So I ended up doing 6 reps at 205, which I felt pretty good about that.
Nicely done.
I actually could have maybe kept going, but I didn't. So anyway, then I ended up doing a superset of single leg Romanian deadlifts. No, not single leg, staggered stance, B stance, Romanian deadlifts, and then a deficit sumo deadlift. It kind of turned into a little bit of a squat because of the deficit, because I was going pretty low.
What's a superset? Explain to us.
Yeah.
Explain to us what a superset is.
Great question, Joey. Thank you. It's when you're doing 2 moves back to back. So in other words, like I would do my staggered stance Romanian deadlifts, left side, right side, pretty much right into my sumos, very little rest in there, just walk over to it, do it. Then I'm taking maybe 30 seconds to a minute of rest, and then repeating that for 3 to 4 rounds. And then there's, you can do like a tri-set where you're adding an additional movement. And then we get into circuit training, which is kind of similar to that, where you have a number of different movements and you're kind of doing those. You can do, 10 reps, 10 reps, 10 reps, 10 reps, rest at the end, or time it, 30 on, 15 off, 30 on, 15 off, whatever it may be.
And how do you feel?
I feel great. I love my workouts. They're so simple. They're effective. It's fast. Then I walk home, and that's.
I would say since you hate doing cardio, your walk home, sprint for 20 seconds, walk backward for 20 seconds. Do that for your 5-minute walk home.
No.
Yeah.
But let me tell you why. Because I lift in vans, and I don't like to run in vans. And you know what? There was a brief period of time, Joey, where I actually thought, I'm going to start jogging to and from the gym. I'm going to start running to and from the gym just to see what it feels like. I did it one day. It hurt. It physically hurt my body. I know there are probably haters out there because people love to run. I'm just not a person who loves to run. As soon as I hit the pavement, it's like a jolt to my body, up the knees, up the hips. But it's not even that. I get tension in my ribs. In between my ribs, I get so much tension and my traps start aching. And I'm just like, oh, God, why? And I even ran track. And I think I'm over it. I never want to do it again.
Buy a scooter.
I bought a longboard.
Oh, yeah, the longboard. Yes. I forgot about that. Which is skateboarding. Skateboarding takes some serious lower extremity strength. Definitely.
Mm-hmm. Stability, balance, fun activity.
Yeah.
Do some fun activities.
Is skateboarding resistance training?
Yeah, I mean, you're resisting the road. Like, you gotta push.
Yeah, I would say it is totally because I've seen those guys' legs and they definitely have some hypertrophy down there. And when they skateboard, they have to push off they have to use their calves to push off, right? So yeah, I
Yeah.
would say totally it is.
I mean, at this point, I'm in the learning process, so it's really more about just trying not to eat it, you know?
Yeah, which is you got to earn your right to get on that thing and go down some hills, right? Just like you have to earn your right to lift heavy. I think that's one thing we can mention here is like, yes, we say lift heavy. Yes, we say dive in those maximal strength parameters. But man, you have to earn your way to get there. Uh, Earn your way to what do you think a good test is? Like 5 reps, 8 reps, 10 reps. If I'm teaching a deadlift and specifically, I keep saying deadlift, but if I'm teaching a deadlift and specifically, I will not have them lift over 5 reps, even with really, really lightweight, because I know it's just so much to think about. Where's my lats and is my core engaged? When I say core engaged, I mean belly button in, and you're bracing like Mike Tyson's about to punch you in the stomach. I think it's just too much to think about. So lower reps for me on the teaching side of things, telling people that let's always work to earn that heavier lifts. What do you say?
Yeah, I do think you have to work up to it and, get your body into a position where you can lift more weights. But that is a good point, is that I think you don't have to be super, super like regimented and specific about the actual, what are the moves, what is the program, percentages and all this. That you can do that. That's great. That's fun. Um, I think the important thing is progressively overloading. You have to do more over time for it to actually be effective. You have to actually be paying attention to what how much you're lifting, like, and lifting more load over time. So in other words, you don't have to be like super super intentional, but keep track of, okay, you did a goblet squat at 35 for the past two weeks for 10 reps. Maybe that's starting to feel a little heavy or a little easy. Bump it up to 40-pound goblet squat and see if you can do 10 reps. And then maybe you bump it up to 50 in a couple weeks. Now we can't get 10 reps, so you do 8 at 50. But then in 2 weeks, try for 10 again. Just continually progress how much load you're lifting to continue to get the benefit of resistance training.
Yeah, and always varying it up too, like different angles, different tempos, different stances, maybe adding in some isometrics. We were talking about isometrics. That's where you hold the movement. It doesn't always have to be weight. It doesn't always have to be reps. Mix those parameters in too. I think too often we get stuck doing the same thing over and over and over. And it's important to remember that variety is key. That's why CrossFitters are so robust and profound in their performance, because they constantly vary it, and let us learn from them to do that. Unless, of course, you are training for something specific, as Darian mentioned before.
But also, you don't have to change up everything to have varied routine. I've been doing squats for the last like 20 years.
Yeah, true. You've been doing some sort of squat variation.
Yeah, because you don't have to change the move, right? You can just change the reps, the weights, and change the load, position of the load. Back squat, front squat, back to back squat, back to front squat. What?
Overhead squat.
Ooh, overhead squat. Goblet squat.
Like Gabe loves.
Single rack squat. Cossack squat. Was that what you just said?
Pistol.
Oh, pistol squat. Yeah, Gabe loves a pistol squat. I love a good Cossack squat. Anyway.
Let's ask our favorite exercise for each movement category.
Okay.
You first.
Oh, me first. Okay, let's see. Okay.
You go. You say, you title the pattern, and then you tell me the exercise, and I'll tell you my exercise. How about that?
Okay. So a knee dominant exercise.
Single leg or double leg?
You pick whichever's your favorite.
I'm going with a Bulgarian split squat, dumbbells at my sides.
Me too. Same. Love it.
Okay. How about How about a vertical pull?
A pull-up, hands down, no question.
What kind of pull-up? Like
Strict,
wide grip pull-up, kipping pull-up?
strict, neutral pull-up.
You know, my favorite vertical pull is I call them rack chin-ups or ring pull-ups. I love a good ring pull-up, but my body's kind of in a jackknife position, and my legs are bent, my hips are bent, my feet are up like 2-3 inches, but I use the rings to pull myself up because my shoulders love that rotation. I think that's why they call it rotator cuff. So I would say I call them jackknife chin-ups, a jackknife chin-up.
That sounds fun. I'll try that. Okay, so do you want to do a horizontal pull?
Chest supported row or a good T-bar row.
Mine is a pendlay row.
Oh, a Penley row. Glenn Penley, man, rest in peace.
I think it's a bigger range of motion than a bent over row, and it allows you to be more strict.
Yeah, and if you're tall like me, if you're over 6 foot, elevate. You might have to elevate the ground a little bit to get down there so you can pause.
If you're just 5 foot like me, you're perfectly suited for weightlifting. You never have to make a modification.
Glenn Penley, he was an amazing Olympic weightlifting coach. Amazing. I went to one of his seminars way back when. Anyways, how about a
vertical push? Vertical push?
Vertical push. I'm gonna go upside down trap bar, overhead press. And if I can do it right, depending on the gym, I can do it easily here, but I love doing it from half kneeling each side. So my pelvis is a little more inverted. Fun fact, real quick, Darian.
Yes.
If your pelvis is split hip, so any of my back folks out there who have bad lumbar spines, listen to this, okay? Your pelvis loves it when it's split hip or like you're in a lunge position as opposed to a bilateral squat, like 2 feet in front of you. Or if you simply elevate one foot or the other. And they found this out years ago because in bars, you go to a bar and have a few drinks, you'll notice that the best bars in the world have a bar, literally a bar at the bottom of the bar so you can put your foot up. They found in like the 1700s that people would stay around and drink longer, and the sales of course would increase if they elevated their foot on that stool because it offers this a little bit of relief on that lumbar as far as shear and compression goes. So apply that to your training. If you're stuck in this 2-leg stance all the time, do some split hip or some B stance stuff, as Darian mentioned before, that your back will really forgive you. Don't go to the bar and drink all night though, because then the bar will love you.
Bar, 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 bar. Try to distinguish which bar we're talking about. We should make that into a game. A bar, or a bar.
Okay, so anyways, upside down. The reason why I like upside down is because it gives me a little more stability of requirements, but I like the neutral grip for my shoulders just from wrestling and whatnot. How about you? Vertical push? Just
standard overhead press with the barbell.
Nice. 135 for 10?
You got it exactly right.
Okay. Now, how about a carry variation?
Wait, what about a horizontal push?
Oh, a horizontal push? Either a 10-degree dumbbell bench, slightly inclined, or a flat football bar bench. So I'm a big specialty bar guy. So yeah.
Mine's a push-up.
Oh, a push-up, yeah, good call.
Can't be a push-up.
But tell them how you do your push-ups.
I do my push-ups with my hands under my shoulders, with my elbows about 45 degrees from my body, so not elbows out. And I like to keep when I'm at the bottom, my shoulders over my fingertips. I like to be very far forward. So I wouldn't say hands are under shoulders in terms of the width, but my shoulders are forward of my fingers, forward of my wrists. So it's almost more like a planche position. And a planche position, and all the way down, full extension at the top. Standard stuff here. Standard.
Do you like your feet together or your feet apart in the push-up?
Slight apart, just like hip distance.
I love them together. You know why?
Why?
Because muscles that wire together fire together, and your adductors and your rectus abdominis. If you squeeze your knees together, it fires up your glutes and it fires up your stomach.
Okay.
To this day, I had a great strength coach tell me that a long time ago.
I'll try it.
And I cannot do my feet apart. It's just squeeze your heels together, squeeze your knees together.
Okay, pencil shape.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, so what's our last one? A hinge.
Single leg or double leg?
Either one.
I love a trap bar deadlift. I love a single leg RDL too, but I would much rather trap bar deadlift any day of the week and twice on Sundays.
I like a traditional deadlift. Not sumo, not a big sumo fan. Just standard barbell deadlift. I do like to do a deficit where I stand up on plates. But yeah, my favorite moves are basic stuff. I love a walking lunge. I do love a walking lunge.
Loaded carries. Give me in that movement category, what's your favorite exercise?
Probably, yeah, farmer carry. I do also like to do like a single rock and a suitcase type of thing because I think it's very practical.
Yeah, we'll debate on practical and functional training what the difference is. Mine would be a heavy sled push, Darian. I love sleds.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. I do like sled push. Also, I love doing handstands. That's a vertical push.
Yeah, totally. I don't even have the form for that, man. I really want to work on that though.
I'll teach you. We can work on it together.
I know my wrist. Like, I think the first step is back against the wall, feet up, and then really hitting a good streamline, right? And then chest to wall.
I would actually do chest to wall first.
Oh, you would?
Yeah, like walk up, nose and toes. Get your nose on the wall, get your toes on the wall. Nice straight line. Hollow body.
Oh, hollow body.
Hold.
That's another thing. Like, no one does hollow body. Like if you want a good hollow body position, you go see a CrossFit coach. Because like if you're doing an inverted row, you're doing a push-up, like to hollow out and hold it, especially at the bottom, is brutally effective.
Well, I think that's part of the reason if you're going to train handstands, to do it chest to wall first, because you kind of have to be hollow because your belly would touch the wall if you weren't hollow. So it's a really good way to just train positioning and shoulder strength. Then you can do some kick-ups, different variations of kick-ups to the wall. And then you got to just start walking or free space holds. Walk to the wall a few steps on your hands.
Maybe I'll make it a goal by Christmas time.
That's lofty.
I'll do it on the show.
Okay, that sounds great. Okay, so we went through our favorite moves.
How about this? We can wrap it up with this last thing. Give our dear listener one piece of solid, actionable advice of everything we talked about today. One thing that they can walk away with and like just have an action item.
Okay, this is also based on a question that I hear all the time, which is, but I don't want to get bulky. Will I get bulky? So I guess my actionable advice is do not be scared to start lifting weights. There is so much more good and benefit that comes out of lifting weights than any perceived negative. It's unlikely you're going to get injured. Just start slow and easy. Keep it basic. Squats, hinge, push, pull. Basic. And it's really hard, especially if you're female. It's really, really hard to get bulky. You have to be eating a ton. You have to be training a ton. So even if you were to perceive that you're getting quote unquote bulkier, it also means you're getting stronger and fitter. And I think that's a win. So don't be scared, just start.
That's good. How am I going to follow up with that? Yeah, don't be afraid. Even women out there, like strength training is like your best tool in the toolbox, man. I got to be sure.
Except for sleep, stress, nutrition, whatever else you said.
Well, yeah, I would say sleep. Yeah, maybe that's my last piece is before you really get into this deep dive in your movements, into your programming, all that. I would say if you're working with a trainer right now or a doctor, whatever, I would say check your sleep first, check your nutrition second. Then once you get those dialed in, we can start talking about, cool, let's hit some good PRs with our bench presses and our squats. Let's start moving well. And to borrow a tagline from Greg Cook, it's to move well before you move often. So I think that'll do it, Dee. What do you say?
I think that'll do.
That'll do, donkey.
Thank you all so much for listening. We really hope you had as much fun as we did in this episode.
We'll talk to you guys next time.
Bye.